Anyways, I'm getting nerdy. What's up, all you cool kids of the internet? Thank you for spending some time with me today. Mark here with Cardivox Academy, and today we're catching up. We're catching up on some work because October was a crazy month. We just finished the band that I'm in's, how do you say that possessively? The band I am in's album. We were out in Knoxville, Tennessee, getting it mixed and mastered and recorded. But we're back. I'm back to making videos. We're going to be back on track here in November. And today we're doing a Patreon pick. So if you're unfamiliar with it, our Patreon has a lot of cool things going on. We have a Discord. We have events every events the second and fourth Monday of every month, listening parties every Friday. And also all of the patrons get to nominate and vote on a song for me to do each month. This month, we're actually going to be doing two, because like I said, we're playing some catch up. I'm excited about this one. This one is Contraband by Make Them Suffer. And it's featuring, of course, Courtney Laplante, which is always fun to talk about her voice. It's always a great time. Now, if you're new to this channel, again, my name is Mark. I'm a vocalist in 3 bands, Kardashev being the most active. Neverbreath and Viremia are out there in the ether. And what we do is we take the reaction format, we break it down, we try to make it educational and fun at the same time. And we focus mostly on vocals. I myself am a vocal coach, specifically kind of specializing in harsh metal styles. So screaming in many various varieties. This is what I teach people to do for a living. And so it's interesting to kind of hear what the vocalists are doing and either explain what they're doing or take our best guess, because sometimes it can be hard to tell, you know? So let's go ahead. Let's check out Make Them Suffer, Contraband, featuring Courtney Laplante. I'm very excited. Let's go. All right, so we've got a transition there. Transitions are where you usually like to stop it. There's going to be something to talk about with the singing, of course. So this is very, very solid, very standard, Make Them Suffer, gritty belting. I mean, that's really what this falls under. Right. You know, interestingly enough, too, this is I'm not going to say the same sound, but this falls kind of in the same family of screams that you get from bands such as like Knocked Loose or Kublai Khan. I know Knocked Loose has a bunch of new stuff that I have to catch up on. Sorry. It's the nature of my life. I'm always busy and behind on the new releases. But this gritty belt has something unique to it, and that's the tonality underneath. We do hear a lot of voicing. So this is a very different scream than what you would hear from, like, you know, Lorna Shore, right? The recent stuff from Lorna Shore, or like, you know, Slaughter to Prevail, things like that, Shadow of Intent, where that's a very non-voiced, like guttural, like sound. You don't hear Mark, right? My voice. You don't hear my vocal folds touching. This, you do have a light layer of the vocal folds creating tonality underneath it. And without the tonality, it sounds super silly. It's usually kind of like this, hey, oh, like it's that sort of sound going on underneath it. This will cause a lot of people to classify this as a fry scream. When in Rome, you know, I'm not the kind of guy who's going to be like, actually, I don't really think of this as a fry scream, because when I perform the scream and when a lot of other people perform it, they're not feeling that same sort of staticky fry sound that you get from bands such as like Fit for a King and things like this. So I think of this much more as almost like a false chord based gritty belt. Like if I take a sort of higher placed false chord grunt, right? Now, another thing I have to say about this vocal style is that the sound of it can vary a lot from person to person because we're carrying tonality through. Like if you're out there right now watching this video, repeat after me. Hey, what's up? Okay, good job. We sounded completely different, right? We're using the same technique, but because our heads are so different shape, there's so much of a different shape in our heads. Our vocal folds are different lengths and sizes, accents notwithstanding, right? We sounded different. Whenever you carry tonality, you tend to get a lot more variation in the sound of the vocals because you're not working with pure texture, right? So if I kind of took this scream and I sort of deconstructed it and took my hand at it, for me, it's like a higher placed false chord. I want me dead. Right, and there's no feeling or activation of fry in there for me. Now, one thing I've noticed is that the definition of fry can change a lot depending on if you're talking to like a contemporary singer, a gospel singer, a deathcore vocalist, right? And so I don't really like to get too hung up on terms. But I know that a lot of people, that's one of the first questions that they ask. So let's go back a little bit. I want to hear some of this singing here, but we'll get some screaming here. Let's go, I don't know, 48 seconds. Let's get to see some of that. There's like this weird shot with like flowers on his eyes. Anyways, let's go. That was nice. That's a really cool chorus. That's a really neat chorus. So first of all, her voice coming in after those gritty belts was such a cool transition, right? You can hear from her voice. Now I ain't gonna try to be up there. You know, her comfort zone is a full octave above me. But you can hear that a lot of her singing would have been sort of wide. Hey, oh yeah, right there, yeah. Right, and you can see that I'm showing some teeth. So I'm brightening up the timbre, right? One thing that's really important for getting a good singing tone, we can sort of stick close to what feels natural to speak in, assuming that we have a healthy speaking voice, and then build on that, right? It's just basic stuff. So like when I talk, right, and since I talk a lot, I focus on speaking healthfully. I always make sure I'm speaking into the front of my face, right? If we kind of sit there and we go, one thing I ask a lot of my students is imagine you're eating your favorite food. Everybody says pizza. Like I've just gotten used to it. If you're in Germany, if you're in Singapore, if you're in Brazil, people always say pizza. I don't know why. Pizza's great. I get it. But you know, if you're like, you feel that buzz in the front of your face. When I speak, I try to feel that buzz in the front of my face because it protects my voice, right? So if we're here, hey, yeah, whoa. Now we have to, of course, activate our support. We have to understand how to bring the air in low, how to hold our ribs out and maintain our inhaled posture while we're activating those abdominal muscles. That's usually where the consistency in the voice comes from, while keeping the neck open and relaxed. And she's doing that really well. She's got a forward, bright timbre. She's got her throat super relaxed, and she sounds great. We're going to hear that again, and then we're going to go into, well, we'll just catch part of it. Yeah, this guy's got a spider on his face. That's a good place to start. Let's go. Whoa. That's a great example. Like, check that out. That was sick. So now it sounds like there are multiple layers of vocals going on here, and that's pretty standard for most vocal recordings. So I'm not calling anything out. But within those layers, it sounded like, and I could be wrong, I'm just pulling this apart, but I'm hearing a layer of just like a high vocal. Whoa, I always stand behind the thing. I got to remember backwards, not sideways. Right? So we have like that high vocal, and then we have the tonal scream underneath it. And it sounds like on the tonal layer, he's moving in and out. He's turning off and on that layer of tonality. This is very important to understand. And if we think about this, right? Like think about that for a second. We can maintain a vocal sound. Okay. We can maintain a tonal vocal sound, true chord phonation, and turn that off while still maintaining distortion. What does that tell us? Think about that for a second, right? Let's internalize that and really pick it apart. That tells us that our distortion with this type of vocal and with almost all type of vocals is not coming from the vocal folds themselves. This is incredibly important. If you're starting with this type of scream, which I actually don't advise many people to start. A lot of times I have had this situation where students come in and they want to jump straight to this, like this gritty belting. And I'm like, okay, well, if we're going to be bringing in tonality, we need to get some basic singing fundamentals down. And when they stick with it, they do well, right? But it can be a little bit longer. But if I take this sound, if I'm like, right, you could hear me turning off and on my vocal folds there. Now it's, I'm just kind of belting out whatever noise comes to mind. But the reason I'm able to do that and then come back into my speaking voice and not lose any of my high range, right, whatever, is because there are heavy degrees of separation from where the distortion is coming from and where the vocal folds are coming from, or where the true chord phonation is coming from. Now with a really traditional fry scream, that one that's like that low, staticky, crispy sound where we're taking like the and moving it higher, you don't project this, right? In that instance, we do have some distortion coming from that quick popping of the vocal folds. But the thing about it is we don't project that very loud. It's a lot about mouth shape and cranking volume and being up on the mic. It's not a very loud scream at all. Anyways, I'm getting nerdy. It's time to go back and listen to that. I want you all to listen for those degrees of separation. Check that out.
They want you finished. They want you signed, sealed, and delivered. Sent to your grave. Love like distinguished. Another crooked song to be relinquished.
Oh.
You keep telling us to die for something, and yet you fight for nothing.
Ooh. Now that is okay. So I should have known that since Courtney's, I didn't know if she was going to be singing or screaming or whatever, but I should have known that when Courtney was coming up, it would be an even better example of turning off and on the vocal folds underneath the distortion. That's something she's really good at, and I think something that sets her apart. Now I've talked a lot about Courtney's vocals, and goodness, have we done 4 Spiritbox videos? 3? I don't know. We've done a lot. But it's essentially the same thing that the vocalist of Make Them Suffer is doing, right? It's essentially the same thing. She's got a different balance, right? And like I said before, it's coming from a different person's head. So sometimes, we might listen to this and we might think that we're hearing 2 completely separate techniques. We're not. These people are doing the same scream, but they sound different because they're giving a different delivery, right? It's kind of like, if you go to one restaurant and get a dish, and then you go to another restaurant and get the exact same dish, they're going to taste different. Hopefully they're both good, right? Because they're being made by different chefs, cooking them slightly different amount of times. So a lot of times when we think of technique, we need to understand that if we're going base level vocal technique, it all kind of comes, maybe not all of it, but a lot of the way we scream comes from really the same thing. And then the way we deliver it is different. As a good example, like let's check this out, right? So this higher placed false chord sound that we're talking about, right? This, right? That's like, so your lower false chord,
yeah, me.
little higher,
Yeah, me.
right? If I take that grunt, I can do a lot of different things with it, right? I can do this make them suffer stuff. I can keep it clean.
Yeah.
I can get super black metal with it,
Free from the teeth.
right? I can get like more like deathcore with it, right? You can do all sorts of things because it's the delivery, right? Now, I'm not saying that that's always what you're hearing when you hear high vocals. I'm just talking about versatility of technique. Anyway, let's keep going. All right, I want to pause it again real quick because there's something really cool to talk about. First and foremost, are those real freaking scorpions on their faces? Because let me tell you, being the Arizona guy that I am, now I know that there are scorpions in many places of the world. They're not exclusive to Arizona. Don't at me. But like, I don't want scorpions anywhere near me. So, and they had the little stingers on them. So that's nuts. But what I really want to talk about is I want to talk about this concept of low, mids, and highs. Right? They are different enough. Oh, the landscapers just showed up. Hopefully that doesn't pick up in the background. I got 5 videos to film today, so we're just going to have some landscapers in the background. But with that being said, right, oftentimes we think of low, mid, and high as being distinctly different techniques. Sometimes that's true, and sometimes it's not. In these cases, their low and their mid and their high is coming from the same sound, but it's the way that they're modulating their face, right? Modulating is not the right word, but it's the way that their oral posture is, their embouchure, right? So if I just talk, if I say, hey, man, what's going on? Hey, man, what's going on? Hey, man, what's going on? All true chord phonation, all the same technique, but I'm delivering it differently, right? So if we carry that over into our distortion, sometimes it can make the search for the high scream a little bit easier if you stop thinking of it as, okay, I have to erase everything I know. I have to go back to the drawing board and I have to teach myself a brand new technique. Sometimes it's true, but sometimes it's not, right? Kind of depends on what you're doing. So if we're taking this like, you know, right? I'm just kind of opening my mouth a little bit more. Now there's a little bit more to it than that. But that's one way to think of it. If you're doing like a retinoidal scream, like a very like that sort of thing, or like a really low rumbly false chord sound, like the more open sound, which by the way, even the open false chord sound, it's mostly your retinoids rattling around, just so you know. But if we take this, then you may have to reinvent what you're doing a little bit for a high scream because that doesn't move up very nicely to a high. It tends to sound like this. Right, and it pinches off, but it's not that hard to do. We just have to learn to go from here, to here, Anyways, I'm talking a lot. Let's keep going. Something's gonna happen, folks. Something's gonna happen. Ooh. Oh. There's a lot going on that outro. So a lot of the same gritty belting stuff. That was, I love those strings. Those strings coming in, loved it. Awesome. Nice little flavor on this song. What I really want to talk about are two things. One is that he switched to that arytenoidal, I should say more arytenoidal focus. It's kind of hard to know like the perfect precise thing to call it. But the difference between the right? When we open our mouth, we can hear that this is the realm where we're talking two separate techniques, right? So I'm here. Now, I'm going to do this again, and I want you to look at my tongue, right? That's a weird thing. Look at my tongue. Ugh. But a lot of times when people try to create this noise, they're pulling their tongue back down their throat. And they're turning into this noise. It's not going to work for you, right? So I'm here. You'll notice my tongue, other than maybe like a little bit of tightening up in the back. Tightening's not even activation in the back. Not a lot changing, right? Because the tongue's not what's doing it. What's happening is I'm bringing these arytenoid cartilages, as I said, above our vocal folds, right? They look kind of like big basketballs. They're coming in and they're closing over the airway. Now, it doesn't really feel like much. You might think like, oh, if I'm closing something above the airway, I'm going to feel like I'm squeezing. But I really, and you know, when I work with a lot of students on this, once they get it, they're like, yeah, I don't really feel a whole lot of what's going on, because minor adjustments like this are really relaxed, right? Right? That's kind of like a diagram of how it goes. Right, like that. So, you know, it can kind of depend on how you're going about it, but overall, that switch to the arytenoidal sound was really dope. I loved it. I did not expect it. Now, in his last screams where he was like, oh, it did sound like it might have been a little bit over projected. I felt like I heard a sort of slappy, like, action on the vocal folds themselves, like this heavy attack of the way that they were closing. I'm not calling this vocalist out. I love the song. I've listened to other Make Them Suffer. It's all great, but this might be, let's listen to it one more time. This might be a little bit of overprojection. And I've overprojected in my life before by accident. It happens. None of us are perfect. We're all going to overproject sometimes. It's okay. I mean, it's not okay to make it a habit, but like if you're good 99% of the time and then one take you overproject, but it sounds cool, whatever, right? Let's keep going. Someone's getting mad at me for saying that. Let's take a pause here. Cardivox Academy does not condone overprojection. We just understand that you're human and not infallible. That's all I'm saying. Here we go. Yeah, so you hear that on the second one. You can hear the vocal folds sort of like doing a little bit of this. Might not have been the most comfortable scream. Again, we've all had moments where our projection got a little bit ahead of us. So something to think about. Right? A lot of these screams, when we do them, we're accessing low space. So like, how do we not overproject? That's a really good question. You're like, oh, well, Mark, you're talking about overprojection. Tell me how not to do it. Well, I'm here for you. So one thing we want to understand is that all of our power, literally all of it, comes from down, I should say our driving force, right? Driving force. It sounds like a power metal band. But it's going to come from down low, right? Think of our human body as like a bike horn. I use this analogy with my students all the time, right? As a bike horn, right? So a bicorn, it's got like that big bulb at the end, and then the tube, and then the flare, right? Right? That's what the sound makes. I got news for you. Like that, like that's what we are, right? And so when I am using the bicorn, I don't have to bend or cinch it, right? All this just kind of stays steady, and then I squeeze from below. So when I'm doing this and I'm breathing in, right? You can see that this breath, nothing's raising up, right? Or not, I'm not driving with that. My ribs are expanding. My abdominals are expanding as a result of breathing in. I'm not pushing them out. That's a huge misconception. People think they have to push out their abdominal muscles. I mean, if you want to work harder for your vocals, feel free. But, you know, that's like people driving way out of the way to get somewhere. You just don't need to, and it wastes gas, right? So when we're doing this and we squeeze, hey, that's a, you know, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to get a good solid tone. Oftentimes what will happen is we'll get excited and we'll bear down. You'll see vocalists going boom, boom on their screams. Right? And that's because they're pulling power from their chest, collapsing their chest onto their lungs. That can cause overprojection. So, I mean, that's not the only reason. That's not the only way, but like thinking about your support mechanism being low, right? And then almost like gently pushing down on the pelvic floor to get upward mobility. Hey, oh, yeah, yeah. Oh. It's gonna help you keep your throat relaxed and, well, not strain yourself. But overall, the song was awesome. I loved the delivery. I loved hearing the dynamics and then the differences between Courtney. Oh, and his name always escapes me. I'm fired, but the vocalists for Make Them Suffer. Awesome stuff. I loved it. So again, if you want to vote on a video for me to pick, come in, jump into the Patreon. Most of the content happens on Discord. We're always hanging out, talking, having events. You get to nominate videos such as this, and it's a great time. So that being said, hit me up if you want some lessons. Say hello, like, share, and subscribe if you like the content. And as always, many thanks, much love. I'm out.